What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a couple different things. UFC 312, which is supposed to be in Australia. Apparently, we have Kamaru Usman coming back, and he's going to be fighting Jack Della Maddalena. That is the word on the street, apparently. So we're going to be discussing this fight. And then also UFC 309, we're going to go over the card because it is coming up sooner than we even realize. It's next month. So we're going to be discussing that, and we're going to be talking about the card top to bottom and seeing and determining if it's any good. Anyways, let's get into the video. Okay, so starting off today's video, we have Jack Della Maddalena versus Kamaru Usman. That is apparently being targeted for UFC 312 in Sydney, Australia. Now, I'll tell you what, you got to give Usman credit right off the bat because this takes balls right here. This is a very tough matchup, in my opinion, and a terrible option for a return fight for Usman. I feel like there's much more winnable fights and much bigger stars that he could fight compared to somebody like JDM, who, in my opinion, is a very bad matchup. Not only is JDM a young contender who's surging up the rankings, he's a very tough stylistic matchup. He's got great boxing, and he also has great scrambles when you take him down. JDM is coming off a nasty KO win earlier this year against Gilbert Burns, whereas Usman, relatively speaking, has been fairly inactive. I felt like Usman versus maybe Oliveira would have been a great matchup for Kamaru because of how big of a star Charles is. Honestly, that's such a big fight, you could probably have that headline a pay-per-view event with maybe a good co-main event. Joaquin Buckley, I feel like, would be another approachable matchup because although, yes, Buckley is very athletic and very powerful, I think there's a lot more holes in his game compared to some of the other potential opponents for Usman. And out of all of those potential opponents, I think JDM is the most technically sound and probably the worst stylistic matchup for Usman to come back and fight, especially after 3 losses in a row and being fairly inactive. So I think Usman is the more powerful and the more credentialed wrestler between the two of them. However, JDM moves very well and throws in combination and moves his head very well. Also, I think he's going to be touching Usman with shots the whole fight, and it's going to look very similar to the Gilbert Burns fight. And I could see JDM finishing him once he starts timing the takedown or the punches of Usman. Okay, so the next thing I want to touch on is UFC 309, and I want to go through the card with you guys, and we're going to talk about if it's actually a good card or not. So starting off with the main event, you got the heavyweight champion of the world, Jon Jones, defending against the number 8 ranked contender, Stipe Miocic, who hasn't fought in 4 years and got knocked out brutally by Francis Ngannou in his last fight. Yes, we're not going to beat a dead horse. We know it's a BS title fight. We know that Jon Jones is probably going to win, and he's probably going to retire. And we're not going to get the Aspinall matchup, which it's a damn shame. It's too bad and quite unfortunate. The co-main event, on paper, it should be fun, but the thing is, guys, is we're running a sport here, and we need to make fights that make sense. And Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense at all. Chandler, right now, he's actually still ranked at number 7. His last fight was November of 2022 against Dustin Poirier. He lost by submission, and ever since then he's been waiting out to fight Conor McGregor. And Oliveira, obviously coming off of the loss to Arman Tsarukyan, I think he should be fighting somebody higher up in the rankings, or maybe doing, like I said earlier in the video, maybe doing an Usman fight. We've seen this fight play out 3 years ago, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the interim lightweight title. We know how it's going to go. Charles is probably going to win. Michael Chandler is dangerous early, of course, but we've seen this fight play out before, and not much, has changed our opinions on this matchup since then. So other than that, we have, like I said, a BS title fight. We have a co-main event that doesn't really make much sense. It's a fun fight, but it doesn't really make much sense matchmaking-wise. We have a women's flyweight bout that I could not care less about. We have Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig. And Paul Craig is about the least dangerous middleweight, or at least striking middleweight, that there is out there on the roster. Nasty with his submissions off of his back. But honestly, I could see Bo Nickel keeping this one standing. I could just see him pressuring, and then trying to get this one done with his hands. Who knows, though? Maybe you'll try to prove a point and wrestle with Craig. Just be careful. Don't get caught by anything. Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. Chris Weidman, when was his last fight? He fought Bruno Silva. That is right. He won by eye poke in his last fight, which I was so amazed watching that fight, seeing how he could just get a decision or a TKO win off of literally throwing a eye poke combination. That was crazy, in my opinion. But that's the main card right there. Jones, Miocic, Oliveira, Chandler, random chick fight, Bo Nickel, Paul Craig, and Weidman versus Anders. Honestly, that main card I definitely feel like is missing that one more big fight, because if you're going to give us Jones versus Miocic and Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler, remember, we're paying $80 to watch this pay-per-view. I feel like we're still missing one really badass fight, or maybe one more title fight for this card, and you could definitely get rid of the chick fight. On the prelims, Nikita Krylov versus Azmat Mirzakhanov. That's actually a good fight. I like that matchup a lot. Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGee is on the card. Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson's on the card. And that's pretty much it. Guys, that's all for today's video. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you for watching if you are still here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.